This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
The tree fell and missed it by a couple of inches, so I'm just glad I'm able to get to go to work.
Today alone, I believe 20 of us have resigned. I think you're going to see similar numbers across the state.
If you completely got rid of the umpires, who would you yell at?
I'd yell at somebody.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. 10,000 in New York and 6,000 in Pennsylvania still have no power from the wind that blew through yesterday. Thousands are in cleanup mode today. New York, sixth in the country for the number of power outages. Some gusts were clocked above 60 miles an hour.
Once I ran out the house, I seen the tree was already snapped from down low. And I'm going, did the lightning hit that tree? Down low, the wind was just that rough.
Heavy rain, lightning, hail, and lots of wind. People seeing quite a bit of debris in their yards.
I woke up this morning, my son, look, come out my room, look at the window.
Teacher Ron Yates says his vehicle was spared.
God willing, the tree fell and missed it by a couple of inches, so I'm just glad I'm able to move it and it's running and I get to go to work and have a functional, normal day. At
one point yesterday afternoon, more than 100 counties in both New York and Pennsylvania were under a high wind advisory or a warning. Kevin's got your forecast for this weekend coming up in a few minutes. Now to the New York State prison strike. The state issued an ultimatum last night.
We need you back. You need to come back to work tomorrow.
That didn't happen. Half the striking workers are still on the picket lines this afternoon. The state turned over the names of 1,000 officers to the Attorney General's office for possible contempt charges. Auburn Correctional Facility CO Timothy Coretti tells Spectrum News some initially planned to vote yes to a state offer, but when it unraveled, he and others quit rather than negotiate.
Now, instead of getting us back, I know today alone, I believe 20 of us have resigned. I think you're going to see similar numbers across the state.
As of right now, thousands are on the lines. The National Guard still keeping 32 prisons operational and a standstill in negotiations. President Trump told Iran today if they don't stop building nuclear weapons, they'll have the military on their doorstep.
There'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. We'll see what happens, but we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Israel's concerned that Iran is close to having operational nuclear weapons. Fort Bragg, which became Fort Liberty, has now gone back to its original name. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth at his desk.
That's right. Bragg is back.
The military base was called Fort Bragg for 101 years before it was renamed in 2023, but its namesake, Braxton Bragg, was a controversial Confederate general. Hegseth says this renaming is for Private Roland Bragg, who fought in the Battle of the Bulge. Same name, new namesake.
PFC Bragg came from humble beginnings. His story embodies the greatest generation. Born in Webster, Maine in 1923, he came of age in the depths of the Great Depression.
Now to the job market. 151,000 jobs were created last month, and the unemployment rate ticked up slightly to 4.1%. Economist Gus Fauché.
This is exactly where the Fed wants it to be. You know, the Fed thinks over the long run, the unemployment rate should be 4.2%. We were at 4.1% in February. Job growth over the long run should be somewhere between 150,000 and 175,000. Given growth in the labor force, we're right within that range.
DOJ has another assignment: defund Planned Parenthood. The Christian law firm, the American Center for Law and Justice, put out an announcement on their social media sites this week saying they're working in tandem with the Department of Government Efficiency to strip the abortion giant of all federal funding. There are rallies all over the United States today. It's not for political or social cause, but for the expansion of science programs in school classrooms nationwide. Bill Nye, the science guy.
The reason the United States is the world leader that it is because of our embrace of science. And so to suppress or censor science is very much not in the national interest.
The Texas company Intuitive Machines says the lander it put on the moon yesterday is a loss. CBS space consultant Bill Harwood.
Photographs from a camera on the lander show it did in fact tip over during landing, and it's now resting on its side in a crater some 820 feet from the planned landing site.
Travel on high-speed rail was disrupted today in Paris. Hundreds of thousands of people stranded after they found an unexploded World War II bomb. It's now been dealt with and detonated, but not fast enough for this traveler.
Communication's awful. We talk to one person, they say go to the help desk, but the queue is over 2 hours long. And by the time you get to the front of the help desk, all the trains for tomorrow are completely gone. So it's just kind of no hope in that.
And daylight saving time is this weekend. There was some talk of doing away with it, but the president says that's likely not going to happen because there isn't enough support.
President Trump had promised on the campaign trail that the GOP would work to eliminate daylight saving time, which was first introduced in 1918.
It's a 50-50 issue. And if something's a 50-50 issue, it's hard to get excited about it.
Newer polls show many Americans are tired of it. Bills have been introduced to make daylight saving time the year-round standard, but they were not successful.
Gonna set your clocks forward an hour this weekend. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, it is Friday, and that means we sit down with our men in the know, Michael Gear with PA Family and Jason McGuire with New York Families for the schnizzle at both state capitals in New York and Pennsylvania. Our own Bob Price has the latest with them after weather with Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. We have a cold weekend coming up. Note, though, it will be warming up early next week. We could have a taste of spring around these parts with some sun and milder air on Tuesday of next week. But in the meantime, for the night tonight, we'll have some clouds returning where they're not now, and there'll be some spots of light snow or flurries in some places. Low temps tonight 20s, but there'll be some sun mixed in later tomorrow as well with a brisk biting breeze once again and high temperatures in the upper 20s and 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. I think we're all ready for spring. And checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. We go straight to the source in Albany and Harrisburg. At the table, Jason McGuire, Michael Gear, and our own Bob Price with Capital Connection. Let's listen in.
Why is the state so hesitant to give in to the Guard's demands?
Well, I'm not even sure that those strikes really are illegal. I mean, there's debate over that because these are public safety issues. These guys aren't asking for more money. They're asking for some balance in their family life and to be protected behind the walls. So this is an interesting position for the governor to be digging in on, and I just don't see how it's going to bode well for her in the months to come. Voters, I think, will have a long memory when it comes to the corrections officers.
Yeah, so you don't think the Taylor law applies in this case?
You know, it's being debated, and I think that really if you have individuals that are saying we need to be safe, that's a whole different matter than we normally think of in these situations. But if you're the governor of the state of New York, you're responsible for protecting those corrections officers and for incarcerated individuals, not one or the other.
And we say with this happening, the budget deadline is just weeks away. Could this interfere with those budget negotiations in Albany?
I think it easily could. The governor is trying to act like this is not disrupting her rhythm, but you cannot ignore this story. At some point, this is going to bust out and become a national news story. It's going to be difficult for her to ignore this as that story grows and grows.
Yeah. Jason, Legislative Day is fast approaching Tuesday, March 18th. How can Christians be proactive instead of reactive when we're talking about the culture wars?
Yeah, that's a constant tension that we are discussing in our office all the time because, you live in a state where so many of these issues are constantly being shoved at you. And so you have to react. You have to respond to those things. But ultimately, if we want to be able to win these issues, you want to be on offense on these things. And I think that's why it's so important that we're doing things like in the transgender issues we're talking about. We have not laid down. The American people are standing up and saying this is wrong. And I think that's a response to so much work around the country, whether it's Michael's work in Pennsylvania or our work here in New York. We've kept that issue in the mainstream. And I think that's where churches can make a difference. We're in this for the long game. Let's just say we're in it for the eternal game. Yeah. And so we're not looking at this as a political fight. We're seeing this as matters of morality and of what is true and what is right or wrong. And so we can celebrate marriage. We can lift it up. And when you build the family, well, then you build the state and the nation.
Michael, in your state, John Fetterman opposing this, Dave McCormick, of course, supporting the Tommy Tuberville bill. But even beyond sports, this gets to privacy issues in restrooms and locker rooms and that kind of thing. And if 8 in 10 Americans want this, why are Democrats so digging in their heels here?
Well, it's an entrenched ideology. In the case of John Fetterman, a lot of people thought he was tacking conservative, but he still remains ideologically committed to some of these issues on the culture wars. He tweeted about it saying, I'm going to be on the side of these school children who are being discriminated against. And Paula Scanlon, who is a teammate of Leah Thomas, famously the man who identified as a woman and was in the Penn locker room, she tweeted and said, Senator, I was a victim of this by this guy changing in the locker room, a 6'4" male in the midst of the women in the Penn swimming team.
And then finally, Michael, just an update on the effort to approve recreational marijuana. Is the Senate still holding up this effort? I know there's been tremendous pressure lately to pass that bill.
Yeah, Governor Shapiro put in his budget address. He's doing a full court press. It's the Senate that stands between him getting what he wants in this legalization of marijuana here in Pennsylvania. We're hopeful that the Senate will continue to stand against it. One senator that has apparently been picked off by the pro-marijuana forces is Senator Gene Yaw, whose district includes Williamsport and places north of there. We would encourage people to communicate with Senator Yaw to understand the risks and damage that comes from legalization of the commercial sale of marijuana, and hopefully he'll swing into opposition.
Get registered. Legislative Day is coming up fast in New York, Tuesday, March 18th. Jason, where can folks do that online?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
And stay informed on all the issues in the news in Pennsylvania. Read up on that Family Structure Index report. Michael, where can folks find out more?
PAFamily.org.
You can subscribe, listen to, and share Capital Connection and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at FamilyLife.org. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing higher to cap a volatile week. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 222 points to 42,801. The S&P 500 added 31 points to 5770, and the Nasdaq rose 126 points to 18,196. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
Do you pray about your finances? Hi, I'm Rob West for the Faith and Finance Minute. And I don't mean praying that someone will leave you a fortune. Instead, I'm thinking about praying the scriptures, such as Proverbs 3:9, which says, honor the Lord with your wealth. You could pray, Lord, help me honor you in my decisions about spending and saving. Here's Hebrews 13:5. Keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For God has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. You could pray, Lord, thank you for being with me. Help me trust you for what I need and be content with what you provide. I believe praying scripture over your finances will make a huge difference, especially in your financial peace of mind. Manage your finances wisely with the easy-to-use FaithFi app. Download FaithFi, Faith and Finance from your app store, or learn more at faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, how much do you like your umpire? Enough to replace him with a trio of cameras on home plate? It's happening in World League Baseball right now. We've got the latest after weather with Kevin Williams.
Well, we've got some cold weather ahead this weekend. Nothing unusual for the time of year, but with a breeze, you want to bundle up. Brisk and cold tonight. We'll find clouds building back in with a touch of some light snow flurries overnight. The low temperature 21 to 28. Saturday, blustery and cold, a few morning flurries, otherwise mostly cloudy, but there'll be some sun mixed in later tomorrow as well with a brisk biting breeze once again. The high in the 30s for most, and chance for a touch of light snow later Saturday night. Sunday, mostly cloudy with a few flurries, except partly sunny in central and eastern Pennsylvania. High temperatures Sunday, 30s and lower 40s.
Say it isn't snow. We're all done with it. Finally, at 5, Major League Baseball is testing a new system that uses a series of cameras to call a strike.
Called strike 3 and Schwarber.
The MLB using spring training to test an automated ball strike system, or ABS, which lets players challenge an umpire's pitch call. The system already set up and running with many cameras per field at 60% of spring training games. Players are giving mixed reviews.
It's been a good little process so far.
I think it's good for baseball.
I don't know if I'm really that much in favor of it. I like that human element part of it.
Some questioning if umpires will be needed when the cameras cameras are accurately predicting strikes within thousandths of an inch. Testing last year showed over half of challenged umpire calls were overturned using ABS.
If you completely got rid of the umpires, who would you yell at?
I'd yell at somebody.
But players say umpires are a necessary part of the game, and the new camera system can stay as long as the umps get to play.
Getting rid of umpires is crazy. As long as they keep the umpires there, I got no problem.
High-tech baseball. And that's the world that we live in for Friday, the 7th of March. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.